Morning and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners Budget Work Session. It's May 2020, and I am John Hutchings, the chair of the board. And we also have Vice Chair Ty Menser and Commissioner Gary Edwards and County Manager Ramiro Chavez and Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell. And I'll just go through the names. We have Denise Doty and Patty Rosetto. Pronounce it for me, Patty. Rosetto? Oh, you're muted. And Olivia Outman. So welcome all, and let's get going. But first, if you want to join in via conference call, the number is 360-252-9020, and your PIN is 1234. So go ahead. Are we starting with and we are live streaming on Thurston County YouTube as well. So we start with the general fund forecast. Are we starting with you, Ramiro?
Robin is going to take the lead on this briefing, but if you can give me 30 seconds or a minute.
You have it.
And this is related to the governor's news briefing that he had yesterday, where he included perhaps Thurston County to apply for a waiver to move into phase 2. Let me walk you through what we are doing related to that in terms of the schedule as well. I have been engaging with Shelley Slatter and Dr. Yu. Dr. Yu is going to be providing a recommendation to the board. That recommendation is going to be completed hopefully tomorrow. I have already scheduled a special Board of Health meeting on Friday, this Friday at 8:30, where you may consider, depending on the recommendation, to concur and perhaps move into phase 2, apply for a waiver. And also I will be scheduling an item for you to consider as a Board of County Commissioners next Tuesday morning for you to reaffirm the actions that perhaps the Board of Health may take this Friday, with the intent that we might be in the position to submit an application to the State Department of Health for the county to request a waiver to move into phase 2, hopefully Wednesday or Thursday of next week. That is right now the schedule that we have. Shelley has already reached out to the hospitals because that's one of the requirements. And we're working on the application itself, even as we speak. I'm not trying to make an assumption how the health officer will be providing a recommendation to you as a Board of Health. I'm not making an assumption the Board of Health will take an affirmative action, and I am not making an assumption the Board of County Commissioners will take an affirmative action. I'm just trying to lay out the process just to give you all the latitude that you have related to this particular waiver. That's all I have for you this morning on that.
Okay, thank you. And we look forward to that conversation. So go ahead, Robin, and you're on.
So good morning, Commissioners. Today is the next chapter in our budget, what has become a series of budget work sessions. And on the agenda for this morning, I will just very briefly go over some of the high points, or perhaps you would call them low points, in the Washington State Economic Forecast. We'll talk a little bit about sales tax and how that forecast relates to our own revenue. Then we'll talk about potential budget reduction areas. We have the capital project list, and much like you reviewed the information technology projects, Jennifer Walker and I will walk through all of the capital projects that are current for 2020 so that you can determine which ones you would like to pause and which ones we should continue to go forward with. Then we'll do a preview of the 15% budget reductions that were submitted by offices and departments. We'll talk a little about interfund charges because that has become a hot topic in the budget reductions. And then we have a few housekeeping items. We have a proposal for property that the county owns in Tumwater, so a brief discussion on that. And then talk about the budget amendments, just to review the calendar that we're proposing, and a few moments on budget instructions. So that's what the morning will look like. So launching into the economic and revenue update that we have received from the state. And I will pull these items up on my screen as we talk about them, but I'm going to...
While you're doing this, Robin, do you want to keep an eye on the clock and take an appropriate break, or do you want me to call it?
Why don't you call it when you see, if you'll help by keeping the eye on the clock, that would be great. Just cut me off when we need a break from all of the misery.
And what time is it?
And also, speaking of the clock, Commissioner, we have a noon meeting, which we need to switch Zoom meetings and everything else. So if you can give us maybe 5 minutes to do that, maybe 11:55, that would be good.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll go about 45 minutes or so and take a break. Thank you.
All right. So here is the May 15th Washington State Economic and Revenue Update. And in summary, it is pretty bleak. The forecast starts with some of the national information that we've already been talking about, and the information in Washington State on unemployment. The decline in employment in the state was unprecedented. And we see that a lot. If you read this document, there are a lot of phrases like unprecedented, lowest since this series has been tracked, lowest since 1948. The decline has never been seen like this before. There are many statements throughout this document with those types of connotations. So nationally, we've lost 20.5 million jobs, and claims for unemployment are extremely high. But as we know, there is what is considered a very sophisticated fraud ring that has hit the American unemployment system. And that is creating problems and challenges for our Department of Employment Security and their ability to process claims and get the money in the people's hands who need it. So here's GDP growth. It's, again, a national level, and you'll see that for the last 4 years, it's been going along, growing every year, and this sudden decline in the first quarter of 2020, if you think about January and February, were probably up months. This total decline was driven by the month of March. Some other things of note. Here is the April job loss in the state of Washington. This area here on page 3 talks about the inventory and measures of the manufacturing sector, and it is in decline. Washington exports in this paragraph decreased by 35%. Over here, it's talking about construction and housing, and construction slowed. These are not necessarily sectors that you would align with the pandemic. This is an interesting fact here. Car and truck sales plummeted to the lowest level in the history of the series, back to 1970. Registrations fell by 63.5%. That's pretty significant. On the revenue side of this forecast, here's the receipts, and you see the month of April taking this big decline right here. I don't know why this graph is on here twice. I couldn't tell what the difference between those is. This is a preliminary report, so it could be that they just put it in twice, because they've been working very hard to get this out. The retail sales tax collections dropped by 20.8%. We've been talking about a 13% drop in revenue that would be comparable to the Great Recession, a 13% drop in sales tax, and they have seen already a little over 20% drop at the state level. So here are some of the items that contribute to that 20%. Starting on this page, retail sector was down 4.7%. Motor vehicle and part sales decreased by 34%. Some retail was showing an uptick. As we know, grocery stores are doing bigger business than usual. They are up 25%. There are building and garden supplies are up by 9%. So you've got a few things that are going up, but most of it is going down. Here's clothing, furniture, sporting goods, toys and books, all down. And payments from the manufacturing sector also down. So those are the places in this forecast that I believe are still a major cause for concern. And I'm going to show you now how that aligns with the sales tax that we collect. Yes.
Right above where you talked about the manufacturing sector decreased, two bullets up, I see payments from non-retail trade sectors increased year over year. What's the example of some of those for the public?
That is, let me see if we have a breakdown on that. I will get that for you because I don't have that handy.
I see a lot of focus, of course, on the negativity, but I see some that's gone positive. I just want to know what that is. Thank you.
Right. I'm looking in the reports that I have handy for some good examples, and I will get those before the end of the session. So on the break, I'll look that up because I don't even see it on this list. So next, what I've provided to you is the top 10 sources of sales tax for the county, and I'm going to share that document. And I'm going to try to make it bigger so we can actually see it on the screen. So here's how some of the things in the forecast align. When we look at the revenue into Thurston County through sales tax from motor vehicle and part dealers, Last year, 2019, we collected over $1.6 million in sales tax from that sector. And when we read in the forecast,
Robin,
yes,
do we have that sheet in front of us?
yes, you do, Commissioner. It's the
Okay.
second item in your packet.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for.
This one.
Let me know when you've got it.
Yeah, well, no, I can follow along there as you go
Okay.
along on the screen. I just.
Yeah,
Oh, we
you've
have
got
it.
everything that I'm going to show you
Okay,
this
good
morning.
enough. I just didn't see it.
All
It's just
right.
below, it's below all the graphs for the US economic variables.
After this,
After that, okay.
so you made your piles out of order now.
Yes, I see that. Go ahead, I'm with you.
Cats. So motor vehicle and parts dealers were the largest source of revenue under retail trade in sales tax for the county. The county collected over $1.6 million, again in sales tax, from motor vehicle and parts dealers. So when we look at the state forecast and we see that payments from that sector, that specific sector, have decreased by 34%, you get a sense of what we stand to lose in the county revenue stream. When you look at the growth in food and beverage stores, so here we have food and beverage stores right here. The county collected 503,000 roughly in sales tax from food and beverage stores. And if that were to increase by 25%, that'd be about 125,000. That would not begin to offset the loss that we see in the motor vehicle and parts sector. So the few places that are up are places where the county does not bring in a lot of money, and the places that are down are some of our largest sources of revenue. So here's overall in retail trade, the county collected, again, these are 2019 numbers, 8.5 million. In construction, we collected a little over 4.2 million. Accommodation and food services, a little under 1.3 million. Again, that is one of the hardest hit sectors, food and accommodation. That's our hospitality. It's down nationally by over 60%. And it's highly probable that this forecast says how much the impact in Washington is so far, but I can't find that fact in the moment.
Hey, Robin,
Yes.
and accommodation and hoteliers have been down, but in talking with Shauna Stewart last night, it's on its way up again now.
They're going to come back, but the degree to which they come back, is that going to offset the loss? And that's the big question.
Yeah, not yet, but it's coming back.
Yeah, but and it's all going to come back. Was it Warren Buffett recently had his annual meeting of his company, and one of the things he talked about is the American spirit and how we will recover. America is strong, and we will come back, just as we have come back out of every economic downturn in the history since we've been recording these things. Economic recessions are a normal part of the economic cycle. They go down and then they come back up. And the real question is, how soon will they come back? How long will the recession last? How deep will it go? We still don't have a sense of that. So we are very, very hopeful that they're going to come back fast. We absolutely hope that all of these predictions are wrong. No one hopes that more than I do. But we can't balance the budget on hope. You have to plan for the worst and hope for the best. And it's easier to put money back into a budget later than to take it even more out later. You've got to act before you have good data. So it's really great to hear that the lodging is coming back, and I'll be very curious, and we'll be watching it very closely, that and all our other sectors, to see what the hard data looks like in the next few months. Okay, so overall, these are, again, our top sources of sales tax revenue, and we know that the major sources have been hit by this economic downturn. Really, I just wanted to show you how the forecast from the state aligns with what one of the few things that we actually know here in the county. All right. So moving on, we're going to go to the meat of this meeting, and we're going to start by looking at the capital projects list and get the board's guidance on if you want to go forward or not with these capital projects. So Jennifer Walker is on, and I have asked her to please walk you through the projects for Public Works. I'm going to share the screen. And Jennifer, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jennifer Walker, Director of Public Works. So the list of projects that you have in front of you are those projects which we anticipate coming to the board for action this year. And so they're divided up according to our systems, the first being the Stormwater Utility. And we have 5 projects listed there. The first project is a water quality project. So it's we're proposing to install a biofiltration swale to treat stormwater runoff. So we anticipate coming to the board requesting to advertise an award to construct that project this year in the amount of $47,165. The second any questions on that? Okay. I'm going to continue through the first 5 projects for stormwater, and then if you have questions, please let me know.
I would like to know as we move forward, which fund that money is coming out of on each one of these.
You have it in here,
Yeah.
on the column,
Okay,
funding source.
okay, funding source,
In this case,
sewer and water rates,
the stormwater rates.
stormwater rates, okay.
Okay.
So the first 5 projects are all stormwater projects, all funded by stormwater, by the Stormwater Fund. The second project, Woodard Basin Retrofit Site 1, is a water quality project. We're proposing to advertise and construct that this year. And you can see the dollar amount is $667,000. The Boston Harbor Road Outfall replacement. This is addressing a flooding issue. We have submitted a budget amendment. This was a project that originally was thought to be just a small minor fix. And once we got in there, we realized it was a much larger issue that we were trying to solve. And so specifically this one, there's the outfall to Boston Harbor is failing. The roadside ditches are too small for the drainage, for the amount of water that's flowing through there. It's impacting a driveway and a yard. So we have some flooding that's happening to residents there. And so this is proposing to replace the failing outfall, install a culvert under Boston Harbor Road and connecting to the new outfall.
Jennifer,
Yes,
is that 140 the budget amendment, or does that include the budget amendment, or how much is the budget amendment coming in at?
the budget amendment was 132,552. So the 140,000 is the total amount.
Includes, okay, thank
Yes,
you.
it does include it, yes.
Could you unmute me?
You are on mute.
Jennifer, one question here. Is there anywhere on here that it tells on each one of these projects, how long has this project been hanging fire? You know, it's an emergency, we've been thinking about it for 10 years, 5 years, whatever. I think that would help us prioritize possibly.
So all of the projects that you're looking at right now for stormwater are at the point where we are wanting to award and construct, where we will be asking the board to do that. So they have all gone through the planning and design phase, and we are now at the construction.
Oh, okay, but I would like to know about how long, is this something that's been in the works for 10 years? Is it just last year we had a serious flood, so now we're getting right on it and fixing it? What's the deal? On which, that's one of the ways I'll be able to decide on priority issues.
Okay.
Does that mean I guess it goes case by case, Commissioner, but does that mean if it's been 2 or 3 years, it's more of a priority, or just it more likely to take it down?
No, I can tell you what, I'm gonna use the example of the building that we voted on yesterday was hanging fire for about 10 years. And then all of a sudden, now we're being told some doom and gloom here. And I'm not saying it isn't all true, and it probably is all true. I just, for the life of me, can't understand why we chose to spend $1 million out of the road fund when we could do a chip seal for 25 miles of county road and do some fixing. And we've been waiting 10 years to do that. Well, why do it in the middle of this financial downturn? So
Okay,
that's where I'm coming
Thank you.
from.
Thank you.
So do we have any of those answers about how long these issues have been hanging fire?
No, I do not have that information right now.
Okay, any chance we can get that? We're being asked to make decisions, and I'm not critical. I mean, how would you know that I'm gonna be asking you that question? So it's not from a critical standpoint, it's just that I feel it's a piece of the puzzle that we need to figure out how things fit, that's all. So, is there somebody from your staff, I know you're new in the job, that could be kind of
It's not
saying,
that new.
hey, we've been hanging there for 5 years now.
So you can get that information for us, Jennifer?
I can follow up with that information.
Right, okay. Thank you, carry on.
Thank you. The last stormwater project is a Woodard Basin retrofit. So this is installation again of a biofiltration or bioretention swales to filter water before discharging to a tributary of the Woodard Creek. Again, this is the last of the stormwater projects that we would be proposing would be constructed in 2020, where we would be asking for board action. We do estimate right now that the ending fund balance for the stormwater fund, I believe the last I saw was 6.7 million. We have the Stormwater Utility is a healthy fund right now. We do have the funds to move forward with these projects pending board approval. And again, these are projects that we would be coming forward to the board this year sometime. The next two projects are solid waste projects. So these are projects that are paid for, funded by the solid waste tipping fees.
Jennifer, can I interrupt?
Absolutely.
I thought we were going to take questions on those.
Oh, yes, sorry, yes.
So I see at the next to last column, grant percentage match requirement NA. So I'm guessing that then all these projects are 100% funded by our stormwater fee. Is that what that means, that column?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, and then the other question was maybe for Robin is what's the if we stopped one or all of these projects, what's the consequence of that? I mean, are the stormwater rates then, does that help us in any way deal with other budget issues, or just the money sits there because it's restricted to stormwater projects?
That is correct, that the money would sit in the stormwater fund because it cannot be used for any other purpose. And it would accumulate, and then I don't know at this point in time if the price of projects will continue to rise as we've seen over the last 10 years, or if due to the economic downturn, we may get a better price in the next year, but eventually they will go up. So, and then there are, of course, the issues of the facility itself. I can't speak to the condition of the facilities that are being repaired through these projects. So Jennifer would have to speak to the, each one would have its own set of issues, I'm sure, if you can go forward with them.
So given the restrictions of these funds, is there some budgetary value, budget management value to stopping these projects?
These particular funds, no.
These particular, okay.
Could I do a follow-up on Commissioner Mentzer's question there? Why are we spending a lot of time right now covering funds that are solvent and they're not an issue? I thought we were trying to come up with a solution to general fund deficiencies that we're gonna be facing. So I'm just, it's all important, but we need to deal with the things that are of utmost importance right now, especially when we're talking about possible layoffs and such.
Well, I believe the board requested to see an overview of the different capital projects, and the staff is responsive to that request.
Okay.
So if the board would like to stop this presentation, staff, we can stop it right now. I mean, we just being
No. I
responsive
think we need
to
to
the
see,
board.
we need to see the entire picture so we can prioritize or categorize, and we already have in our head then where we're going. But if this, again, this doesn't save jobs, it doesn't save potential shortfalls in the general fund or furloughs or pay cuts. It doesn't have any impact on that. And these are all restricted funds. I don't care how long they've been sitting there. If we've got the money and a solvent and the people have been paying taxes to get this stuff done, I think we should just get these ones done. I need to see the whole picture.
I agree. I don't know. I thought we were trying to solve deficiencies in the general fund. That's kind of what I'm here for today.
Well, some of that will come up, I imagine, in the rest of this presentation.
Many of our funds are impacted, and part of the conversation here, I mean, this is an excellent discussion and exactly what you want to have when you're making budget considerations. But part of when we've been coming to you with projects for approval, part of what we've been asked is, can these projects be paused? So here is the complete list of all the capital projects that you're going to be reviewing as this year goes on.
Okay, I still have to say, why are we doing, we've asked our other elected officials and department heads to submit a 15% cut, and that's basically general fund revenue that we're talking about taking away from them. We've created a lot of anxiety in each one of those entities that we've asked for that report. And I think we should be focusing solely on their issues right now. Yes, this is very important. We need to look into it, but I don't think we need to look at it right now.
So I think this is important information for the public who might say, wow, you're looking at devastation on your budget countywide, and yet you're going to do a Woodland Basin retrofit. Why didn't that wait? So this is good information for the public consumption, as well as other electeds who may not have the in-depth data that we have and information on these projects and the directed funding. So it's good information if we just keep going and not belabor the issue.
Yeah, we've been on it now for about 40 minutes and we got nowhere. We already know the economy
we're
is
getting
in
nowhere,
bad
but we can
shape.
get somewhere.
We know it's in bad shape. Let's get on with doing something constructive. That's all I'm saying.
All right, go ahead, Jennifer.
We have 2 projects planned for solid waste, 2 capital projects. One is to replace and downsize the existing flare The second is to improve the SCADA system, which is basically, it's the supervisory control and data acquisition system. So this allows us to monitor and control the system on operating points at the Waste and Recovery Center in the closed landfill. Both of those projects are fully funded by the solid waste tipping fees. Any specific questions on those two projects?
No questions, but do you want an answer now as to whether we're moving ahead on these or not? Or a thumbs up?
That would be great
Okay.
if the board's prepared to give that.
Stormwater Utility, are you ready to give a thumbs up or down, commissioners?
No, I'm not.
Commissioner Messer?
Let's just at least finish this list.
Okay. Go ahead, Jennifer.
The last are 7 transportation projects that we have planned for this year with action for requesting from the board. The first is a safety improvement, pedestrian improvement project. You'll notice as you move along in the columns that this is where the grant percentage match requirements comes into play. And so for this project, 10% is being paid by the county, 90% is being funded through a grant. So this is $8,000 from the road fund. The action we would be coming forward from the board for is to request obligation to begin design and acquire any needed right-of-way for the project. But this is in the design, we would be moving into the design phase of this project, and it's a safety improvement project. The second one is a study that we're looking into. Is having to do with US 12 and the potential for removing the connectivity between Moon Road Southwest and 188th Avenue Southwest. And if that was done, this is in coordination with Washington State Department of Transportation. If that was done, then the proposed state roundabout at US 12 and Moon Road would not be necessary. The third project is our highway safety improvement project, and the board has seen this a little bit earlier this year for going out to bid. This would be advertising and awarding the contract. And this again is a 10% match, 90% covered by a grant. You can see from the road fund, it's $134,000. The third project is a fish barrier removal project. It replaces a culvert under Case Road. This is funded with grant funding and real estate excise tax funding. The third project is remedying our only functionally structurally deficient bridge in the county for Reeder Road. We have a grant on this as well, just with a match from the county of 13.5%. The last 2 projects are both fish passage projects. The first, Spurgeon Creek, we are contemplating coming forward and asking for a call for bids for bridge replacement. So this would be pre-ordering the prefabricated bridge. That certainly helps with the streamlining of the construction of this project, especially when we deal with fish passage or fish windows for construction. And then the last project is would be to advertise and construct a culvert replacement at Elbow Lake Creek to improve fish passage. So if you look at the amount of money that's actually coming from the road fund proposed for 2020, it's $8,000 for the Yelm Highway and Pacific Avenue pedestrian improvements. That's for design. Potentially $10,000 for the study for the Moon Road intersection closure, and $134,000 for the highway safety improvement program. And then the Reeder Road Bridge, $650,000.
And then you also see the amounts for Reit. That would all be Reit 2.
Hey, Jennifer, this is Romero.
Yes,
The board has already taken actions on some of those projects by authorizing the department to go out to bid.
that is correct.
Do you remember which one of those? I think I recall that the majority of those, the board has already taken an action to go ahead and secure bids. So what you're stating is you're going to come back with a request for another action to award the contracts, correct?
Yes.
So Robin, same question I had earlier, but about, let's say, REIT 2. I know that there's some limits on what that money can be used for, but it's not only fish passage or whatever. I mean, what is there a flexibility element that we should be considering if we were to stop, say, a project that's coming from REIT 2? Would that give us the ability to use that money somewhere else we might need more?
So Reit 2 can only be used on public infrastructure that is not county buildings. So roads, sidewalks, sewer systems, water systems. The legislature recently passed a bill that would allow Reit 2 to be used on homeless ways to address the homeless situation. So there are things that the board might consider doing with Reit 2 that is not necessarily roads. On Friday, we'll have the financial plan for Reit, and you'll be able to see all of the projects that the board has approved in the capital facilities plan out of Reit 2 and Reit 1.
Pisner Road is the one I remember we just took some kind of action on that. I guess that's the only one to me that stands apart from the others in the sense that the other ones we're getting 85 to 90% federal match, which I'm going to make that deal every day of the week. The Pisner Road, it looks like we're paying for the vast majority of that project. So I guess I know we just discussed it, so I feel a little embarrassed, but remind me of why that was a good move to push forward in light of these others.
Well, I guess what I would also say is that if you look at under the second to the last column, obligate/spend deadline, we've received on the Pisner Road, this is where we were trying as much as we could to leverage county REIT money. And we received an $80,000 grant on this. And so when we receive grants, we have an obligation for spending that money, putting a project out on the street. And so we do have a June 2020 deadline for moving forward with that.
Okay, I remember that. Yeah.
Otherwise, the grant money just gets, we don't get it.
We have to return it. That's correct.
Okay.
So would you like to give guidance on these? Would you think about these and give guidance on Friday?
Let's do the back page.
So then we go, these are the only public works projects that would come to you for action this year. The rest of the projects on this list are central services.
Okay, good.
Jennifer, why isn't the sand shed issue on this list? Does it fall into some different category?
The central services project, they're managing it.
Oh, okay.
We pay for it, but they're managing it.
Okay, Commissioners, so let's go back to the top, the Stormwater Utility.
Well, I can shortcut this discussion because I didn't hear a compelling argument for why we would not move forward on any of these. I mean, the funds are completely restricted on stormwater and solid waste. The other list of public works is an 85 to 90% match. The only one that is a little different, like I say, is Pisner Road, but
Eisner.
I think we discussed that and made a decision, a week or two ago on that. And that's a close call from my perspective, but it's coming from Reit too. It's not like it would just be wide open to pay people's salaries or something else. So I see advantage to just authorizing this list to go forward.
And I'm with you, but I want to give deference to Commissioner Edwards too, because he had a lot of questions.
I'm good to go. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this.
Good, thank you. Okay, so those are all approved then. Thumbs up on all of those.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
What?
So when each specific item comes to your formal action, that will remind you of
Please
this
do.
conversation.
Please do, yes.
Timely.
Well, we've already taken action on about half of these.
No, you're taking an action on going out to bid, then you need to take a follow action on awarding the contract. And in the long term, we are planning to bring you a proposal as to how we can streamline the process.
Okay,
All right. Good, all done, that one.
Okay, so these projects are the ones in central services. Unlike Jennifer's list, these are all of the projects that the board has approved funding for in 2020. So they're not only the ones that would come before you for action. So just starting at the top, the FJC camera controls are currently in the phase for bidding. These cameras are failing at the FJC, so we're in the process of replacing those. That comes from the Building Reserve Fund.
most of this stuff, when we
The Tillie Power system improvements, it's in the design phase. It's my understanding that we need generators to replace the generators at Tillie. Did we lose Jennifer? So that's currently in design. Also from the Building Reserve. The Fairgrounds Building Infrastructure Improvement Project. This is where the board has earmarked $250,000 from Reit 1 to do a project at the fairgrounds. I would recommend, it has not gone anywhere. It's been in discussion for at least 7 years now. And I am recommending that this be taken off of Reit 1. The Courthouse Building 3 infrastructure, I believe that this is the project where we've just replaced the air handling system in Building 3. It is in closeout. So it's just about finished, and hopefully there will no longer be leaks in Building 3. I'm going to skip the ones that are in closeout, and I'm going to the Tillie Sand and Mat Storage Project, which is being paid by road funds. So
already commented, I guess.
Commissioner Edwards would like to.
No, I mean, it looks like that's a done deal. We voted on it yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Robin.
Go ahead.
okay, if you're not interested in further discussion on
I
that.
am interested. Please continue with that Tillie Campus Sand and Mat Storage. You were talking about it.
So, okay, so this project, it did come before the board yesterday, and Jennifer, I was hoping would still be on so she could speak to the why this is so needed.
There she is.
And then we're gonna go into.
And so this is a project that is coming before the board next week. Central Services is advertised. I believe they noted they received 13 bidders on this. It came in under what we estimated, I think what they estimated the engineer's bid would be. The sand shed was built back in 25 years ago, and it's the only covered sand shed that we have for Thurston County. The structure itself received damage, I think back in, Lucy put some notes together for me, a road operations manager, and so I'm gonna go through these notes, so she was helping me with this. But the cover was damaged back in 2015 due to heavy wind, and we had to replace that. And then in 2018, the front half of the tarp was damaged again. So where the shed is positioned, it is predisposed, because it's the way that it's facing, to continue to have damage where it is. And the company that originally we bought it, I think used, and the company that originally built it is no longer in business. So we found a replacement for the tarp that since has been damaged again. And so the value of the shed is that when sand is wet and it freezes, it has to be broken down into a loader bucket, and before it can be loaded into sanding truck. So as we're moving forward, whether we're dealing with a snow and ice event or we're dealing with flooding, if we can't keep the materials that we have protected from the elements, that slows our response. It's a delay in it, and takes more time to get the materials where they need to be. We additionally had that built. So I guess what I would say is that if we don't do this, if we don't move forward with this, we will have to move forward with doing something else. So we'll be coming in front of the board for some other type of project. I'm not sure what that would be. It's been 10 years, I don't believe for lack of trying. I can only speak to the last 2.5, where we have been moving forward with trying to get this project going and coming before the board and requesting permission to move forward with it. So this is the closest that we've gotten. Go ahead, Romero.
Hey, Jennifer, you said that if we don't go forward with this 1.1 million, you'll be coming back for some other project. Is that because the money needs to be spent, or just because you have so many projects to be completed?
It's because we have to resolve this issue that we have with our sand shed.
So the other projects related to this?
Yeah, it'll be something related to, yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, Commissioner? Ty, go ahead.
Ramiro had his hand up before me, so I'll
Yeah,
let him.
Romero.
And this is more a historical perspective, because I have been familiar with this project for quite some time, even when I was on Jennifer's position. Even when, I think Jennifer's correct, that if the board doesn't support this project, we need to come back with a different solution to the issues that she highlighted. Yeah, I think even in my tenure, on the winter times, the tarp that covers the sand shed blew like three different times during the winter time. And either we replace it, I believe, a couple of times, and we have to spend a lot of time and effort from staff to pull that tarp back to make sure the sand stays dry. Because obviously we cannot operate with wet sand, it's extremely difficult. So, and this is just my pitch, and I understand the time it has taken to come to this point. And also, I believe that at some point, not enough is continue to be a valid point. But when we built the Tillie campus, as part of the permitting requirements was this was going to be a temporary fix, knowing that eventually we needed to provide a permanent solution to the sand shed. So that's just my perspective on that.
Go ahead, Ty.
My question was, after the meeting, whenever it was, yesterday, I guess, we had a claim in a letter from a citizen that we couldn't use the road funds for this because it was not equipment, it was building something. So I guess I wondered if that issue had come up in the past and been evaluated as for its accuracy. I certainly do not want to be spending money inappropriately from the wrong fund.
Maybe I could answer not necessarily directly to that, but overall, every year, the County Road Administration Board performs an audit on all the expenditures of the road fund. And every year, the county receives a certificate of good practice, meaning all the expenditures are according to the law. Also, portions of, when we build the Tillie campus, obviously we have to use a bond, we issue a bond, and the road fund is paying for the bond because it's related to a public works facility that has a road purpose. And many attorneys have looked into this. The state auditor has looked into many years as to the uses of the road fund when we pay for the bond for the Tillie campus on the roadside. So I don't believe that we have been given an added finding as to how we have misused the road fund at this point.
So, Robin, if we don't approve of this 1.1 million from the road fund for the sand and material storage, what areas can that money be used or diverted to that might help the county overall?
From the road fund?
Yep.
So you have many options about how you might use that $1 million from the road fund. You could pay for other road projects. You could pay for any eligible use of the road fund. And
That's my question. What are the eligible uses?
oh, geez. Jennifer, would you like to roads, bridges,
If we divert money from the road fund, it seems like quite often.
trails, I'm
To the
sorry.
sheriff's office?
No, it cannot be used for anything that is not directly related to roads, except it is the possibility that the board would want to increase the amount that is diverted from the road fund that is used to pay for sheriff road deputies. Although you cannot divert more than we would have in expenditures, and I think that we currently divert $1.5 million, and the expenses of the sheriff that would qualify last year were a little over $2.2 million. But we've received information from the sheriff's office that those numbers are going down, not up. So the most that you would be able to divert, in my opinion, would be another 500,000.
Okay.
But also, I believe the board has, I'm sorry, Commissioner was his hand.
No.
Is the road levy shift, which also affects the road fund. And I think is more of a technical conversation, meaning everything, whether it's the road diversion, the road levy shift, needs to be done prior to getting into the road fund itself. Because as soon as the money is deposited in the road fund, the board cannot do anything, because that really addresses your question, Commissioner Hutchins, what activities are. Because as soon as the money hits the road fund, then you can do other than just what is prescribed by law in terms of the use of the road fund. That is why the board takes, before it gets into the general fund, the diversion, which is allowed by law, and the road levy shift, which is also allowed by law.
Good, that's where I was going. Thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
That amount of money could easily Do 25 miles of county road chip seal, for an example, for about $1 million. So, I don't know, it'd get close to doing 30 miles, with 1.13 of chip seal to preserve roadway for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. I don't know, I think chip seal lasts 7 or 8 years, keeps it from breaking down worse, so.
So just as a reminder for the board, there's 4.5 million annually that's diverted and shifted out of the road fund. 4.5 million every year.
Yeah, that is correct. That was gonna be my punchline. Thank you, Jennifer.
Robin, you have something to add?
Just that, just tagging on to Romero's comments, you would not be able to increase the diversion or the levy shift in 2020.
Yeah.
That has to be an action taken for the ensuing year. So those cannot be increased this year.
Okay. So that's regarding the Tillie campus sand and material storage. Go ahead and move on then to the next one.
Okay.
Maybe we could expedite the rest of the list.
Let's do that because it's at 5 after 10. We got to get a break before we end.
Okay. So rather than looking at each individual one, most of these are in planning. Those have not begun yet. They're projects that have come forward mainly to improve the buildings that we're in. You have heard from constituents that we don't do enough on these buildings as it is, and these are projects that would attempt to prolong the life of the building at least somewhat, or address security concerns. So on both pages, the bulk of the money is coming out of the Building Reserve Fund, which means it's already been collected by offices and departments and cannot be used for any other purpose. Those items that are paid for from Reit, you could certainly divert to other uses in Reit 1. But again, for the most part, this is maintenance on these buildings that has already been deferred for a long amount of time.
So they will come back to us anyway, eventually, for an approval.
And, if we don't address the maintenance issues now, they will just continue to get worse. And ultimately, you'll have emergencies like we had the electrical lines break, or the water pouring down in Building 3, or similar things. You can address it proactively or in an emergency manner.
Okay, so what do you need from the board regarding the central services capital projects?
So
Line by line, thumbs up and down, or not yet?
that's up to you if you're ready to give a thumbs up or down.
Commissioners, you ready?
I'll vote against it. I mean, that's what I'm ready to do.
Okay. What'd you say? You're ready to vote?
I'm ready to vote against it, yes.
It? All of them? What? It?
Well, I don't know.
Well,
Too
you
many
said it.
things
What do you
in
mean,
here
it?
that I think we can figure this out in a couple weeks. I wanna get to general fund, I wanna get the problem solved in general fund, so let's.
I used to know what you meant by it. Commissioner Menser, you ready to vote thumbs up or down on these?
There's 5 different funding sources here. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I agree with the argument that kicking a can down a road that's not going away doesn't necessarily help us if these are restricted funds that don't have the flexibility to meet other pandemic related needs. So, but there's 5 different funding sources in the list that Robin just summarized in a paragraph. So it's hard for me to say I'm ready to vote up or down. I guess if we do this Friday morning, I'll spend time between now and then putting a little brain power to each of these projects. I haven't seen this list.
Okay. So then let's put this off till the day after tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then we'll go item by item with a thumbs up or down.
Okay,
Thank you.
That makes sense. That's good. We can do that.
And it's 10:10. Let's take a break and be back at 10:20. 10:20. Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
Back to the budget workshop, and it is still May 20th, 2020, and we're going to continue on where we left off. And there's Robin. We're putting away the Central Services capital projects. We'll discuss that on Friday. So where are we going now? To the economic variables?
So we are now going to the budget reduction preview, and the reason I'm calling it a preview is that the decisions that we're going to ask you to make and the time that we'll have to go in depth on these is planned for Friday. But we did want to give you an initial look at what offices and departments had proposed so that you're able to take a little time to think about this. And I'm getting out of something that I was looking for non-store retail. It appears to be mainly
Are you gonna put the document on the screen?
internet sales. Bringing it up,
Okay.
trying to get out of something else that I was trying to do.
Aren't we all? No, we're not.
Okay.
I'm just trying to find what you're talking about.
So it's this big, there you go, the 11-page list of reductions. And now I'm trying to find my cursor there. Nope, here it is.
Is this the right one? You got a smaller sheet than I do. You're smaller, no. Same. Okay.
So commissioners, as you recall, we sent out a letter requesting that every office and department prepare budget reduction proposals of 15% of their total appropriation. That was not only general fund, but it was all funds to give a sense of what the options are that the board has. We selected to do all funds because it was the only fair way to distribute the exercise. If you had only asked for general funds, then many of the departments would not have been participating in this. And we know that not only the general fund is impacted from the economic downturn. So you do need options for other funds, not only the general fund. That's why this list includes all different types of funds. So most of the offices and departments participated and entered their proposals in the budget system Questica. The reason that we asked that it be entered in Questica is because their proposals were due last night by the end of the day, and you are looking at them here at 9 a.m. this morning, and that is because we have a system that can generate reports that makes it a little easier on staff, although staff were working late into the night last night to prepare these reports for you.
And this is everybody except how many?
I'm gonna say right now that we've really not had time to review this list. So
Okay.
the assessor did not enter his proposals into the system, but you do have a letter from the assessor.
But he did comment on Questica was the problem, it sounds like, on why he was not able to do that.
All the other offices and departments managed to put their proposals into Questica. So I'm not sure. Again, we've not had time to review any of these, so I don't know what the assessor's concern with the system is, but he did send you a letter, so you have his proposal. It is not on this report, is all I'm saying.
Okay,
Not saying he didn't do what you asked.
What
He
do we
did.
do with the camera?
I think and the sheriff sent a letter too.
Did you do something with the camera?
What do you mean?
Go ahead, Robin.
Change the location of it somehow.
Oh, it is Zoom for you, the
Well, I
training?
don't care, I mean.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Robin.
I'm a little distracted.
So,
So,
There you go.
we have a proposal from the assessor. It is in a letter. It is not part of this report that you have on the screen right now. I have not seen a letter from the sheriff, but perhaps Romero received that, or commissioners may have received a letter
No,
from the sheriff.
We received an email from the under sheriff yesterday, and they were planning to submit a letter today, I believe.
Right,
So I have not seen so far a letter from the sheriff.
okay.
We don't have that to share with you at this time.
But the reality of that is, in that budget and as many of these other budgets, it's gonna be personnel when you ask for a 15% reduction. There's no other way around it.
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Robin.
Okay. I'm not sure if there are other offices or departments that are not represented. Denise, are we missing anyone else?
No, there's at least something from every other office and department.
Okay,
Right. Thank you. Okay. So just very quickly, and again, I have not looked at each of these, so we put the report together. Denise put the report together last night. We have not had time to talk to the offices and departments about what these items are. If there's not enough detail here, we cannot help you at this point in time. And it's not because anyone didn't do a good job, because everybody did. It's just because we have not had these documents long enough to be able to take the time to understand them as we would normally do in a budget conversation. So just walking very quickly through these proposals, taking them completely on face value. The auditor has suggested that she would, you have the savings, the first item, and there's line numbers. I wonder if I can hide the headings. There we go. That's a little easier to read. So line number 1 is the savings from not holding the April election, $178,000 that the county will save. You don't need to take any action to do that. Then there are staff savings in the auditor's office. She has said that she would delay purchase of equipment for elections. There is a delay in software for elections. There would be a reduction of historic imaging projects. By the way, you have the fund on the left-hand side of the page. Because to be able to get to 15% in total, most of our offices and departments had not only general fund savings, but other funds as well. Finally, the auditor proposes that she would increase the historic imaging project. And what she would be doing is moving staff out of the general fund and into the restricted fund, if I'm reading this right. And then finally, the auditor would reduce travel and training.
And I'd also like to add in, the auditor this morning sent us an email that 250,000, it says general fund, but it's really coming out of Fund 1090.
So
Which
this
I cannot
will not be general fund savings.
Yeah, it won't be general fund.
Okay, thank you. Central services, none of the central service funds are general fund. They're all restricted funds. But in central services, you would see reductions in projects coming out of Reit. These are some of the projects that were on the capital list that we were just looking at. There's a reallocation of part of my time since I am now managing central services. So we would allocate part of my salary directly to central services. So you see an increase here. And when we look at the commissioner's office, you'll see a decrease. We would eliminate 3 FTEs in central services. Those are the facilities supervisor, a building inspector, and administrative assistant.
I have a question about that. Robin, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep.
What are we doing about a project manager? Couple different issues. The jail, seems like we had another one too. Courthouse and the jail. What about those positions?
So the courthouse position was not being paid out of central services. That was being paid out of a commissioner's fund, and the position is actually in public works. The time that that person was spending on the courthouse has been redirected to other public works projects. The project manager who had been working on the flex unit, he has also come from public works, and part of his time, about 30% of his time, is currently spent on public works projects, and he has been redirected to projects on the courthouse, the current courthouse campus, and has been working on some of the projects related to COVID. For example, he's currently working with us and the courts on how to find adequate space so they can do appropriate social distancing. But they were redirected to other work that needs to be finished.
Okay.
So those are the 3 positions that we would eliminate in central services. Again, the facility supervisor, an admin assistant, and building inspector.
Commissioner Mason had a question.
Now, go ahead, Ty.
Robin, I just wanted to double back on the auditor. So the auditor then hit the target without and hit the target without a reduction of any FTEs necessary. Is that what you're saying?
She has staff savings here.
And I'm familiar with that. That was explained to me.
She has retirement that's included in there, that in her, she's talking about potentially just increasing someone below that position to step up and maybe do a little supervising. So there's staff. She got a little lucky with one of the retirements, and then some election savings with staff help. Okay.
I just wanted to make sure I understood that. I mean, we had this target sheet too, and I looked like her target was 655, and this comes at 539.
Correct.
Is that just because she didn't quite make it to the 15%, or is there some different calculation of the 15% that Are you tracking what my
I
question?
can't answer that question, Commissioner.
Okay.
Yeah, we've only just got these at the end of the day yesterday with enough time to package them for you.
Got it. Keep going.
All right. So going down, back down to central services. In the reserve, we would propose eliminating 500,000 in capital projects. That would include the project at the Fairgrounds. I'd have to look again to see what those other projects are. Then in ER&R, we believe that we're going to have fuel savings and less costs for equipment this year. And there would be a postponement of purchasing equipment for the vehicles and the large equipment that we maintain. Then in the ER&R replacement fund, we've worked together with Public Works and identified $650,000 in equipment purchases that can be deferred to a future year. So total savings in central services are 1.7 million. Their target was 1.4.
Very good.
Okay, moving on to the clerk. The clerk has proposed vacancy savings of 332,000 in the general fund. It looks like their entire proposal is vacancy savings. And what I don't have information on here is which positions would be held.
Okay.
Okay, so the clerk is total savings of 366,000.
That was not in this packet today.
What was the clerk's target? Do we have that?
I don't have the target letter handy.
I have it. It was 366,576.
That was the target?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so Commissioner Menzer, I'm going to rely on you to tell us what the as we go. So moving to the commissioner's office,
Hey, Brian, can you make a copy?
we are recommending
I'll get you.
eliminating the commissioner's receptionist position. This is the reduction to the administrative assistant position. We have a position with an end date of December 31st. We would move that up to June 30th. The commissioners have quite a few restricted funds. We do expect that for most of the revenue is going to go down, so we put them all on the table. For the trial court improvement projects, we would reduce that by $17,000. That would just be less projects that the courts could conduct. Again, it's a restricted fund. It can't be used for staff. The tourism promotion area, that is revenue based on bed nights in hotels. We know that that's going to go down. We don't know how much. This is a pass-through fund. So if the revenue drops by 15%, we would drop the associated expenditures. At the end of the day, the expenditures are going to match the revenue because it is a pass-through. And the same is true of the next item for TCOM 911. This is a pass-through. We do expect revenue to go down because a chunk of this is sales tax, and we will adjust in accordance with the lost revenue. So these two are basically placeholders. In the Stadium and Convention Fund, that's better known as LTAC. Again, that is based on revenue from hotels, and we do expect it to go down. You do not have a whole lot of latitude on how this is spent. It must be used on projects that support tourism. So the reduction there is to just have less projects that would be awarded. Conservation futures, the fund is going to be fairly stable. It will have less revenue just based on how many people are able to pay their property tax timely. If we were to reduce out of conservation futures, then it would reduce the conservation grants for the purchase of conservation easements. Historic grants, this is Historic Preservation Fund, and you would just reduce the awards. In Reit, again, these are projects from Reit, and I would recommend eliminating the $250,000 that's set aside for the fairgrounds and $100,000 for infant-friendly workspace. And I would just like to say that it's not that I am opposed to these programs. The infant-friendly workspace in particular, we've been able to do that without major renovations to the buildings. So we don't think you need this $100,000 to make that project work.
Robin?
Yes.
Oh, before you move on to the next one, I want to go back to the Stadium Convention Fund projects.
Okay, here.
What are those projects?
Those are the, it's better known as LTAC,
That's the LTAC?
Tax Advisory Committee, and they are projects that would be used to increase tourism in Thurston County.
Okay. Thank you. I heard you say LTAC, but I didn't catch up. Go ahead.
I know it's the name of the fund is straight out of state law,
Okay.
so it's a little confusing.
Sorry for the delay.
No, not at all. To do the reduction to REIT 2, you would want to examine the projects that are being paid from REIT 2. That again, part of the review that you just did on the construction projects. You would need to choose which of those projects would not go forward to achieve savings out of REIT 2. Here's a general fund item in the commissioner's office. We've had vacancy savings this year, and there's $38,000 that we saved by not using those for any other purpose. And then here is the reallocation of my time, part of my time, to central services. You saw the ad in central services. And finally, we would propose eliminating the assistant county manager position that has not been filled. So the commissioner's total is a little over $2 million, which I believe hit the target for this department.
Yep. If it wasn't clear to the public from that recitation, what falls under commissioners is a lot more than the operation of the commissioner's office. It's a whole bunch of other funds that just go under that umbrella. And I had to educate myself as to that myself as I went through this week.
Right. The other thing I would say about the commissioners is when Romero and I prepared these proposals, we ensured that there is 15% reduction in the general fund portion of the budget that is part of the commissioner's office.
I guess I would just point out that if you really add up the total what's under the commissioner's office though, because of other departments, whether it's road department, HR, whomever, it comes out to over 200 million.
Oh, well
Our
over.
department directors and stuff.
Right. If you were to add
All
The
the other entities in the
report to
county
you, then it
are
would
non-elected.
be substantial. But these are the funds that you are directly have oversight of, and that your immediate staff manage on a daily basis. I would also, this is a good opportunity because the commissioner's office is the first of these offices and departments that you're reviewing that is charged through the indirect rates. And after we go through this list, we'll talk more about what that means. But basically, part of the commissioner's office is allocated out on a 2-year lag to other funds and creates revenue to the general fund. So on a 2-year lag. So anything that you spend less now will result in less revenue to the general fund in 2 years. And there are a number of offices where you have that type of an impact. It's just one of those things to keep in mind. All of these proposals have a downside. None of these are happy things. They're not necessarily good things to do. All of them have impact, but you just need to keep in mind what those impacts are as you make your decisions.
So time check, you have 1 hour and 5 minutes to get through 9 more pages. This really is a preview, and we'll be going more in depth on Friday when we have a lot more time. If you think that this is worthwhile going line by line, I can continue. But if you'd like more of a summary, we could try to do it that way. But
Again,
do you have more documents to get through in our packet here?
so spend a few minutes on indirect and overhead type internal services, because that was brought to you by one of your constituents as a potential. So we do need to talk about that, but we could do that on Friday. All the rest of the agenda could move to Friday.
Okay, then go ahead and I was check with my seatmates, but I think a general overview rather than line by line is helpful if we're gonna hit them more on Friday.
Well, if we're gonna cover this line by line on Friday, I'd say yes, but otherwise, if we're gonna be rushed through it, this is kinda good, if we get a good understanding of the
So-
overall.
My suggestion will be
Yeah.
maybe to expedite the process today, just go through the bottom line savings that each office and department is proposing, knowing that perhaps there are a couple that are not included on the spreadsheet. And I will encourage the commissioners to read this prior to Friday. And I know there's a lot of information, and we will walk you through line by line on Friday, because that's when we're gonna start asking the board to start making some decisions.
And that's what I'd like to do is the overview, get to the bottom line as an overview, do it on Friday because there's still quite a few more things in this packet to get through
Right.
without being rushed.
Okay. All right. So we'll just go to the bottom line by each officer department. Next, we have community planning, also known as long-range planning. These are your staff that write county code, and they are reducing FTEs, savings of 216,000. And again, I've not had time to go in depth on each of these. What was the target for community planning, Commissioner Menser?
190.
190, and they've come up with 216,000.
It looks like it's not a layoff, though. It's a position freeze and then reallocating other positions to other fund sources. is what I'm reading.
That is what this appears to do.
As we're kind of looking at that, just I'd like to throw out, when are we gonna talk about this general fund vacant positions?
Well, that would be on Friday, Commissioner.
Okay,
Hopefully this list captures most, if not all, of those vacant positions.
Because it's beautiful. You ask the office and departments to
Okay.
picking positions. and
Okay,
eliminate
Number
um,
33.
Commissioner's office.
yep,
okay.
so
Those reports
next you have
eliminate all-
CPED, there's savings in the fair.
Realize we're not gonna eliminate
There are
some of them, I'm curious which ones,
reductions or position freezes for staff.
you know, out of the.
And
That's what it-
again, those would be reallocated where possible. For a total savings in CPED, other than long-range planning, of 594,000. In the coroner's office, the coroner did a 15% calculation. We do not have information on how he would get there. I believe he was talking about training, travel. I'm not sure what else he would.
And personnel has to be in there.
I don't think that the coroner was proposing personnel. The coroner's office is absolutely minimally staffed to be able to cover a 24/7 shift.
Right.
It was professional services.
Professional services.
Thank you.
Next, we have district court. Just on a quick read. The district court is proposing eliminating the probation office. For a savings of 253,000. Emergency management is next.
So just district court is a little short of the target, but yeah.
Okay. The next item is emergency management. They have proposed phases. We have a memo from Kurt Harden that I included in your packet. It's an email. And no, it's actually a memo that goes into more depth on what these would be. But there are savings in emergency management, all general fund of 130,000. Emergency services is funded by Medic One. And you see the reductions proposed here in support. Medic One, again, can't be used for another purpose. However, the fund does have a rapidly declining fund balance, and Medic One is proposing to need to go on the ballot for a levy increase in either 2021 or 22. So any savings in this area would delay a ballot levy request for this fund. They have savings of $1,275,000. Human resources is a combination of general fund and other funds. They have savings of 202,000, almost 203,000. Commissioner Menzer, what was the target for HR?
440.
440,000. Part of that is because Human Resources has restricted funds for it's your risk pool, your unemployment compensation fund, and the benefits administration fund. If you go to layoffs, we will need those funds intact to be able to manage the HR component of layoffs. So there is an email from Maria that describes that in your packet. Next, we have information technology. We will defer projects. So you see the countywide website and the ERP. These would be the savings for those being put on hold at this time, $1.2 million. And then additional projects would be proposed as on hold. And then there's a decrease to the expenditure budget. I don't have the details on that. For total decrease in IT of 1.7 million. Again, none of these are general fund. In juvenile court, they calculated a 7.5% reduction. Not quite sure how they got to 7.5%.
Half of the year is what they're saying.
Yes, but we did 15% on half of the year.
I know.
Yep. But they've calculated savings of $412,000. And they would decrease professional services and probably eliminate a vacant position. At least one, if not more, vacancies in juvenile court. Commissioner Menzer, what was the target for juvenile court?
615.
Okay. In non-departmental, there is funding that we have earmarked for future projects. These were from one-time revenue from sales of property. We would eliminate that for $422,000. And then we have also received notice from Animal Services that that their rates are going to be reduced for all of the jurisdictions. So that's the savings of almost $60,000 for savings of $481 in non-departmental. And what was the target for non-departmental?
422.
422. Then we have pretrial services. Pretrial services is a very small budget. It's well under $1 million a year. And just this is a side note, you'd think a smaller target would be easier to achieve, but in very small offices and departments, it's extremely hard to find savings. So pretrial services, they have talked about it looks like they're proposing furlough days. Is that? I'm not yes. It looks like this department is proposing furlough days for a total savings of $60,000. Sorry, the screen's jumping a bit. The next item is the prosecuting attorney. He has a reduction of 600,000, and I don't see how he would propose to achieve those savings. What was the target for the prosecutor's office?
858.
858. He has submitted 600, all general fund. It's possible that the balance is restricted funds. In public defense, we don't have information on how this savings would be achieved, but public defense has savings of 532,000, and their target was
552.
552.
552. Okay. Again, this is all general fund, and public defense does have a small amount of other funds that are not reflected here. Then we have public health and social services. There are a number of proposals. You see a very long list from public health. This is mainly out of Fund 1500, which is the public health fund, environmental health fund, and treatment sales tax. Those are their main sources of funding in public health. I won't go through each one of these. It is a long list, but they've been very specific. I would note that there is a savings in the nurse family partnership that we would need to take a look at because the board agreed to a maintenance of effort level to be able to accept federal funding. So it's possible that you would not be able to take this cut without violating that contract. That one jumps out at me, but these are broad savings in public health that add up to $1,736,000.
Robin,
Yes.
that NFP funding that you're talking about, was that to increase service to Lewis and Mason, or into Lewis County anyway? That was the most recent, I believe.
So the county accepted a federal grant. I don't remember exactly what the grant would be used for other than expansion of the program. I don't know that it was specifically for services to the other counties, but it came with a maintenance of effort clause, which means that as of the date that you accepted that grant, county funding cannot fall below that level. So we would have to take a look and see how much we were spending at that time to see if there is any capacity to reduce funding for that specific program.
All right, thank you.
All right. Commissioner Menser, what was the target for public health?
1.2.
All right. So these add up to 1.7. I would also say that at the same time that you might be looking at reductions to these funds, and again, these are restricted funds. However, treatment sales tax we know will be impacted. It's possible that environmental health will be impacted. So it's important to look at reductions in those funds. The main public health fund, Fund 1500, you're going to get a huge inflow of money into that fund related to COVID-19, but it will not be able to be spent on your other programs. And what we might see happen there is that money that would normally have been spent on these other programs may get diverted by the state and the federal governments to become COVID-19 related. So even though the public health fund overall might grow, you may still be looking at cuts to your regular programs. Moving on to public works, again, all of the funds in public works are restricted, and the only thing that comes out of the general fund in public works is support for parks. You won't see general fund listed under public works, but the parks fund is in large part funded. Well, actually, the only revenue to the parks fund is conservation futures, some road fund for trails, and general fund goes there. It's a little over 600,000 in revenue to the parks fund. But here are a broad number of reductions in public works, vacancies, projects, eliminating certain positions. So a very long list from public works to achieve a savings of $4.7 million. And what is the target for public works?
5.4.
5.4. So
What was that, Ty?
5.4.
Thank you.
then we have the social services side of public health and social services. That includes the Veterans Fund and the Housing and Community Fund. Reductions here, mainly, they have proposed reducing awards from the Housing Fund if that fund should see less in revenue. So the total savings in social services, $777,000. The Superior Court reduction proposal is from treatment sales tax. They have proposed reducing $30,000. That's the only reduction that we have in the system from Superior Court. I've not received the letters from Superior Court. Romero, have you?
Yes, we did receive one. So I will send that your way. I thought you already included it. Let me look.
I may have missed it in my email inbox. If so, I apologize, but we will get that letter to you, commissioners. The system includes 30,000, but their letter possibly has additional information.
Hey, Ty, what was their total or their target?
Superior Court,
Yeah.
530,000.
And we have the treasurer, who has also.
I'm sorry, the letter from Superior Court expands on the proposed reductions. So I will give you a copy of that. You'll receive an email from them as well, but I'll give you a hard copy.
Great. Then we've got the last office on the list is the treasurer. This is, again, the treasurer has a number of restricted funds. You have an email from the treasurer in your packet. The restricted funds are mainly for debt payment, and we cannot reduce our debt payment. We are obligated to pay that. So I believe that the treasurer calculated 15% on his general fund budget to propose a reduction of almost $91,000. So adding that all together, whoops, going the wrong way. This report, and this does not include, again, amounts that came by letter. So it does not include the assessor, the sheriff, and part of Superior Court, and possibly a handful of others. But the total general fund savings, if you took every item on this list, is $4.3 million, and $14.4 million in restricted funds.
But does not include the offices they have not added to Questica.
Correct. This is only the items that were in the system that we could pull a report from. So those are the proposals that you've received.
And you may not have this at your fingertips, but just understanding the number of, if this plan was adopted in its entirety, the number of layoffs that are proposed are a few here and a few there. I didn't hear that many, although we don't have obviously input from sheriff and a couple other places.
Right. We also don't have in-depth information from a few of these offices and departments.
Like prosecutor and public defense, you mean?
Right. Well, and like just at my fingertips, I'm not sure how the emergency management savings are achieved if they include a layoff. These layoffs are minimal, but once you go to execute them, there's a lot of, I guess where I was going with this idea is are these reductions sustainable over time? And we'd have to take a look at this because a lot of it is travel, training, delaying purchase of equipment, capturing vacancy savings that have already occurred this year in positions that were subsequently filled. Not all of this would carry into the future.
And I'll comb through this list too. I want to get a fixed on what type of services, how it'll impact the public and our citizenry in reduction of services, delays in services, and such as well.
Right.
All right, thank you for that.
Yep, we will go in depth in this on Friday. We will bring the vacancy list back out on Friday. We will have financial plans for some of these other major funds on Friday. With any luck, there'll be new information from Department of Revenue. Don't hold your breath, but I've been looking for that every day on the DOR database. So we may see new sales tax information, but it's not likely. Anything else that we can think of that might assist you? We'll also bring the proposal list because you have an option here again about instead of doing these individual line by line cuts, you have other options such as a salary reduction. So just keep in mind that you're not necessarily tied to these particular things.
All right. You have 35, maybe 40 minutes to, are you gonna go through all the rest of the packet then?
So we can very quickly take a look at the other items in this if you're ready to leave the reduction list.
Yeah, it looks like we are. Okay.
All right. So the next item in your packet is a white paper that I wrote in 2015. And I've got to close this and bring up the new item on my screen. And there. So this is just a bit of a primer on internal service costs. And you had a suggestion, and some of your offices and departments have suggested to you, why don't we just reduce internal services? And that's certainly your prerogative to do that. But before you do it, you need to understand what it is that we'd be reducing. So basically, internal services are the things that we're paying in a central manner so that every office or department does not have its own little office. So not everybody has to go out and find space to lease. You don't have to have your own HR office. You're not issuing your own paychecks. Each office doesn't have to maintain janitorial services. We're not responsible in each office or department for getting our own phones or computers or support for those computers. These are, or attorneys, or these are the kinds of things that we pay for in a central fashion, and each office and department is then billed, if you will, for the what's basically infrastructure to be able to provide services to the public. So these are not direct costs, they're called indirect or overhead. Here's the basic ones that we pay for. Central services includes building repair and maintenance. We have the building reserve fund to pay for maintenance and repair projects. We have the ER&R, that's our rolling stock and large equipment fund. So there's the maintenance and the reserve for that. Some of these are now, I wrote this in 2015. So since then we have a new information technology department that includes geodata, tech services, and a tech reserve. We provide mailroom and postage records and phone and scan services. So we also, on an indirect rate plan, we have financial services all provided centrally. There's the commissioner's office. Emergency management is billed out through the indirect. Long-term planning in part is billed out on indirect, not all of it, but some of it. HR, the civil division of the prosecutor's office. Most of the items in non-departmental are spread across the county because it's a shared cost, such as dues to Waco, NACO, WASAC. The state auditor costs are billed out, and costs of our treasurer are billed out across all county funds. Risk management and the administration of our benefits, all of these are considered central services. Here's why. You mainly do it for efficiency and an ability to charge all funds. We determine our rates on a method that is considered fair and equitable, and we use best practices that are required by both state and federal law. And this is an important piece to note as you determine whether or not you want to cut internal service rates. Many of our rates are billed on a 2-year lag. So what you're paying for today are the services that you received in 2018, and the costs need to be fully recovered. So that includes everything in the indirect plan, human resources, the attorney's office, the commissioner's office, financial services, all being paid on what was incurred 2 years ago, and all of ER&R. So if you got your car fixed 2 years ago, you're paying for it this year in what you actually incurred. So we can't reduce that because we're paying back costs that were already services that were already received, basically. All of the other accounts are billed on a prospective basis, which means that we estimate how much it's going to cost this year, and that's how much the bill is. And at the end of the year, because state laws prohibit internal funds from making a profit, if we collected more than we spent, then we give what's called a rate rebate. So the rates are reduced every year if we collected more than we actually needed. And those things that are prospectively billed are the electric bill, the water bill, the phone bill, the costs for repairing the buildings, the costs of maintaining our IT systems. So as you could see in the reduction list, there are ways to reduce some of those costs, but some of them we just can't cut back because it's not like we can't pay the Puget Power bill or the water bill. So when the question came up, can I reduce my internal services? The answer was, how would you reduce what you use that relates to an internal service cost? So we can reduce our IT costs by reducing the number of computers that we have or the number of phones that we have. You know, do I really need that county cell phone that was assigned to me? So we can reduce rates, but to do it, we have to think about how the rates are built and what they pay for. So that is just very quickly what I wanted to share with you as you think about, can we reduce internal service rates? There are two other options as I list here. You don't have to do internal service rates. The other option is that every office or department would have to have its own way of providing those services. So you'd have your own electric bill, you'd get your own phones, or you can pay for essential services 100% out of the general fund. Those are the options. And then this paper goes on to talk a little bit about how we set the rates. And again, there are approved methods for doing that. Here's a table straight out of a report by our state auditor on how to allocate overhead in local government. I'm holding it up. I'd be happy to provide you with a copy of this very long and not so interesting document. But we do follow best practices in this area, and these are some examples of ways to allocate the costs. So I just wanted you to be aware of how internal services work and are budgeted as we go through this cut exercise. Any questions about that?
Yeah, go ahead, Ty.
Yeah, so it's not really a question. I guess I'm just trying to summarize my understanding, because when I read the proposal from the citizen, it seemed backward to me. I mean, you could say, oh, let's I'm quoting, reduction of rate charges to offices and departments for internal services by 17%. It seems backward. You don't know, what does that mean? What are you cutting? So it seemed to me like you'd want to look at, well, what thing are we not going to do anymore? And then if we cut that thing, then the rate would be, over time, would be adjusted accordingly, and departments wouldn't be billed for that thing we're not doing. But to think about it as a cut in advance of a percentage that we don't know what it connects to didn't make much sense to me, and it sounds like you're telling me I was right. So we'd have to think about, if you're saying we can make cuts here, we'd have to go to this list on page 1 of your white paper and say, what are we not going to do? Archive records, provide phones, pay the electric bill, as you say, cut computers, not deliver mail around the county, not put money in reserve for systems replacements.
You don't pay into the risk pool.
Not paying risk pool. So if we want to have a conversation about those items, that's appropriate, I guess. I want to make sure, when I get a proposal and it doesn't make sense to me, I want to make sure I understand it before I reject it out of hand, because sometimes people know more than I do. So, but this one, I just don't think that there's savings there unless we get to the nitty gritty of eliminating central services to our different county departments and offices. Is that fair? Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on this?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. That was a good point, Ty, because the general public may not have an understanding and just say, hey, let's just do a 17% cut here. It doesn't add up with all those other considerations. Gary, any questions?
No, I guess we can do our own janitor work.
Yeah.
That would be an option. We can each clean up after ourselves and haul our own trash.
But I need gloves and a mask. All right.
Well, we're buying those.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be charging them to the feds. Okay, so moving on, we wanted to talk to you about the possibility of using a piece of land that the county owns. So as you know, we own a piece of property out, I believe it's across the street from the jail. And we've been approached a few times now with inquiry on if we're interested in selling that property. And now we have a specific proposal from a person who would like to use it for a large array energy storage project. Up until now, we've been saying that we needed to hang on to that property for Plan B for the courthouse, especially now that it's not going on the ballot. We may need to use that property for county purposes, but in the current economic climate, it was certainly worth bringing this forward to make the board aware that there may be a way to get a little revenue out of this property by either selling it or renting it out. So I guess, and I'll ask Romero to chime in, but part of what I'm interested in is guidance from the board on holding properties that we own as we develop Plan B.
Robin, can you let us know, without going into an executive session, what the value or the assessed value of that property is, or how long we've had it and what we paid for it back then?
No, I don't have that information, but I could certainly get it for you.
Yeah, and commissioners, in your packet include two pieces of information. And this is public record, so that's what is in front of you. And as Robin stated, it's correct, because over the last at least few months, we have getting a little bit of an interest on this property. And we've said, hold off, because we need to have a holistic conversation with the board as to what Plan B will be. Because this piece of property could be part of that larger solution. Well, everything has changed. And you have with you a copy from an email. And it's addressed to me, from me, to me. That is and there was an email that we received from Kidder Matthews back in May 1st, I believe. If you flip that piece of paper, that email, that gives you an indication as to the interest of somebody who might be looking to purchase this property. And they came up with a value of that property on their own. That is something that we need to explore if that is feasible, viable, doable. As you know, before the county can surplus any property, we need to go through a formal appraisal, and that is one of the requirements. And also, secondly, so that is a proposal that was submitted to, I believe, to me and Robin early in May. And again, my position at that point is hold off because this property could be part of the conversation of Plan B. Fast forward to where we are, this conversation may be timely. The second proposal that you have for you, it is from 1099 Energy. Is a little bit different proposal. And there is more of a leasing a portion of that property with the intent that perhaps in the long-term lease could lead to a purchase of this property. Obviously, we don't have a value to that. We have to explore that option if in fact that is something the board would like to explore. So then really at this point is you have an asset available to you. And the asset, I'm not expecting you to provide direction today. This is just to bring to your, for your discretion. It could be an asset can be disposed by selling it. It also could be an asset can be leased in the long term to generate some revenue. And again, this could be something for your consideration on Friday. And again, I don't want to put you in the position to yet make a decision today because this is just an introduction to the topic, an introduction to the opportunity, and an introduction to the options that you have before you. And again, it's 11.86 acres that we own. And on the screen is a depiction of that property. You can attest where the jail is located. You can see where the juvenile facility is located just to the north of that. And the jail is it will be to the west of that property, which is on your left-hand side.
Very good.
Anyway, so this is again, I want to bring this to your attention as an option. And again, something we may want to discuss on Friday. And Commissioner Edwards has a question.
Go ahead, sir.
I would not want to contemplate looking at this as a separate issue. Too many times, we end up looking at individual items and then we don't consider all the facts. If we're gonna look at the possibility of disposing of property, I think we should look at all county property that's available. And in this particular case, I wonder that using it for what this particular purchaser is interested in is kind of contrary to what the intent of growth management is, almost, if they're still talking about trying to condense population into the municipalities, and this is in the city of Tumwater. And electrical production, I take it it's gonna be sunlight. I don't know that would work anywhere on the electric grid, that we can reach the electric grid. So it doesn't have to be a high dollar property that's right in the middle of a municipality. First of all, I mean, that's just, but I wouldn't wanna move forward on looking at this without looking at all properties to see what would be feasible, not just this one.
So-
Merrill, is that something that can be done for Friday, is bring a list of all of our properties, or would that be a separate discussion? There's that many.
That will be extremely difficult to bring that information to you on Friday.
Okay.
But certainly, if you like to delay this conversation, certainly we can probably engage as to how we can bring that information that you need, and looking at all the properties the county owns.
Right. So we brought this particular one because the gentleman who has sent you this letter is looking for a response. I completely agree that it would be wise to look at all county property, but this one keeps coming up. So we wanted you to be aware that there might be an opportunity here.
I don't mind discussing it further on Friday, just conceptually, along with, in considering, Plan B, with the courthouse. But I definitely would love to look at all the other properties that might be, on the list as well. Go ahead, Ty.
I'd have to know. I've never heard this property discussed in any Plan B for the courthouse. So I'd have to be educated as to whose idea is what about how that fits into any plan, because I've never heard that. I don't know how many other properties we have. I'm not interested in selling parklands. So if we're gonna, that's a waste of time from my perspective, because I'm not gonna be willing to sell those. But if there are other commercial type properties that we could consider at the same time, that's fine with me. But I agree that when there's an offer on the table and an interest, that's a reason to at least have a discussion. I'm not going to second guess some energy company and how far they are from the grid. If they think that they can lease a property and make economic value, that's their decision, not mine. So if they want to lease the property and we make money off of it, that sounds win-win to me.
And so I'm not aware of this property coming up seriously in discussion of a Plan B. But since it has come up and somebody's interested, and we have almost 12 acres, I'm not opposed to looking at every option available and then dismissing it, saying that's not feasible, or it's too far away, or it's not large enough, or it's wetland or something. But I would like to discuss it, because I don't think we've really discussed it meatily in regards to a Plan B. And I agree, if someone wants to buy the property, it does matter what they want to do with it, but that's their judgment call as to whether it's unique, sustainable, and achievable, not my call. So I think it merits further discussion, but I would like to see other properties in the future. Romero, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to address the Plan B question. As you may recall, we had a very high level conversation as to what Plan B will be. It was probably, I don't know, early in the year, and if it was February or so. And we really didn't get to the level of detail as to what that Plan B will be. And at least from my point of view, this is an asset. They could have been further discussed under Plan B, because it gives you the opportunity to build something smaller, if that was the case under Plan B. And that was the reason as to why we hold it to further conversation under Plan B. As you may recall, when we had the initial conversation on Plan B, it was a 30,000-foot level conversation. We never got the chance to get down to the level of details that we should have. But anyways, in fact, we only had one discussion on Plan B.
Right, that's true.
We did discuss a homeless mitigation site there, I believe.
Yeah, that was, at some point we did that, yeah.
And I think that was ruled out because of proximity to other facilities on that side of town.
Well, we had pro and con list, and Carpenter was just 20 billion times better than that property for a bunch of reasons.
That is correct.
Was that, let me get that, 20 billion?
20 billion. It was like the pros went to the next sheet over, is what I remember.
Yeah, okay.
Can we make that as revenue?
Just
All right, Robin,
in terms of
anything
comparison.
further?
Nothing on the property. We'll start working on a comprehensive list of properties that the county owns. I don't know how long that will take. I'll have to ask my facility guys, but we'll see if we can get something. Probably not for Friday.
I remember when we were grilling you guys about the homeless mitigation site, and there was a map up, and I believe there were 3 or 4 spots, and 2 or 3 of them were ruled out in terms of a homeless thing for other reasons. And then we were left with just 2 to compare, which was this one and the Carpenter Road, but we were asking, are there other options? And there weren't many. It was literally 4 places that we own besides the identified parklands.
Right. We don't have a lot of vacant property. But again, what we do own a whole lot of is tax title property.
And those by default, there's such a small pieces, and the county treasurer is actively trying to surplus all those properties.
Commissioner Edwards, please, go ahead.
Well, I guess the homeless topic has come up, and I know Olympia's talking about putting a 5-story building out there on Martin Way out near the VFW Club, I believe, or the Intercity Transit might be a more well-known location. I really think, downtown Olympia is getting to look like a ghost town. They got a lot of empty buildings down there, and I don't know why they don't place it down there where there's services for those people they've been encouraging to come here. That's all. I'll just throw that out. I hate to spend a lot of time on it right now.
Okay.
Because then people like you will tell people don't go to downtown Olympia because they put all the homeless people there. That's why.
Well, maybe they'll wake up and quit encouraging them to come here is what I'm hoping.
One way or the other.
Yeah, I think we're digressing now just a bit. Robin, do you have anything further on the budget?
On the budget, yes. Just last few minutes to talk about what's coming up. So here's the last of our agenda for today. We just wanted to let you know that we are working on budget amendment number 3. That was planned before the unplanned pandemic. There is an opportunity for offices and departments to request the things they need and any changes in the current budget, such as receipt of grants and other technical changes. We have time on your calendar to review the requests for amendment number 3 on June 3rd and have planned to ask you to adopt that amendment on June 16th. Originally, amendment number 4 would have been the one to close the fiscal year where you make any last minute changes that are necessary to close the year. And given the pandemic, we are suggesting that we add a 5th amendment. There are days I'd like to plead the 5th, but so we'd have amendment number 5 would be the one in December, and the new one that we would just call amendment number 4, I'm thinking we would do in August, late August or early September. And that would be the amendment that would reflect the budget cuts, the influx of new revenue from the COVID, the downward adjustments to revenue from the economic downturn. So mainly it would be the pandemic amendment. That would become amendment number 4. So we don't have a timeline built around that, but when you look at amendment 3 and you go, well, where's the reduction to sales tax? And where's the huge new grant, that the $15 million that we're going to get? And where are those things? Those will come to you in amendment 4. And then just a word about the biennial budget process, which is where we thought we would be at this time, is preparing for next biennium. You may recall from our conversation about state law that offices and departments are required to have an opportunity to state what they need in the ensuing years. So what we're doing right now, because we haven't started to grapple with what the process will be for building next biennium, but we know we need to provide an opportunity to offices and departments to say what they need. So we're going to give instruction to offices and departments to build that part of their budget. And any additional instructions from the board on process, like will you do a priority-based budget? Will you be forming priority teams? Will you be asking for a cut in the next biennium beyond what you might decide on Friday? All of that is yet to come. So, but we want them to go ahead and start working on what they would normally do in this process that would not change. And again, that's the part of the budget process that has been consistent every year since before I came to the county. So just to let you know that those things are going on.
So I have a question, and that is when I've heard over the last year or 2 years or 3 years that our budget instructions have changed from priority-based to zero-based to back again to variations. Will this be another proposed change?
So what I would comment on that is that budget instructions do change every year in every jurisdiction. The instructions on how to build a budget have to respond to the financial condition that the jurisdiction finds itself in. So the changes, the underlying process has not changed. Offices and departments are asked to submit their requests. Those requests are reviewed by the board, and the board makes a final budget decision. There have been changes. We went to a new system. That was a change. So that was a process change, but it was driven by IT. You did not you, this board, but a prior board. 1 year, the revenue conditions were poor, and the board asked there to be a freeze on new policy requests. 1 year, there was a budget cut exercise. 1 year, the board decided to form priority teams. We've done that for the last few years. We changed from annual budget to biennial budget. So there have been those changes, but I would say that you would see those types of changes in any jurisdiction from year to year as you respond to the budget environment.
Glad you brought that up because that was my next question. When you look at the forecast, the up and down, and we don't know where we're going yet, and it's hard to project budget assumptions, that it has been proffered by a few that this might be a good time to change from a biennial to an annual budget. What say you?
So I would say that best practices in fiscal first aid are to take the long-term view, and you get a better sense of that in a biennial budget instead of the short-term view in an annual budget. You need to be planning long-term because you need to be considering the health of your funds long-term. And I would say that this is not the time to change to an annual budget. If anything, I need to add more years to the forecast. And it's easy to put money back in if you cut too much.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? Ty, do you have one?
I have a question, Robin. I'm just really, I'm nervous about the 3 commissioners with your help trying to juggle all these different strands of information about the different budget cuts. Some of them are really broad. Some of them are very specific. Some of them are, different varying dollar amounts. Some of them are mutually exclusive from each other or illogical. And I'm just wondering if, just a thought off the top of my head, is there a way to organize? Because one of the things I don't know is it's just hard with the information we have to know how to get to that finish line I know the finish line is kind of arbitrary, but we've set it for ourselves, a finish line of $5 million savings over 6 months for the general fund, right? And so is it possible to organize some packages of strategies that, a furlough based one or a salary reduction based one or a department plan-based one. I'm not sure. Maybe it's not lot, but I'm just trying to figure out how we're gonna, as a board, sift through this and craft a package that we're all comfortable with that gets us to that finish line, given all the different pieces of information that are really hard to put together coherently.
This is why budgets are generally built over many months instead of a few weeks. Because if we have time, we're able to create those kinds of packages. But being able to package these cuts when we've had them for 2 days is extremely difficult. We can certainly see what we can do. I know we'll try our best to respond to that, but the time constraint may get in the way. We'll see what we can do.
I understand completely. I appreciate it.
Commissioner, maybe a suggestion,
Go ahead.
if we can organize that information on 2 buckets, general fund proposed reductions versus other funds, would that help?
That would help me a lot.
Right, perhaps, yeah, you bet.
We can certainly do that easy enough.
Robin, did you have anything to give out on the budget instructions? Or
No,
is that it?
that was what we'd already talked about those.
Okay, then we have a 1 o'clock Zoom that we need to set up for it, so I'm gonna say Robin, Denise, Olivia, Patty.
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock.
12 o'clock, 12 to 1, yeah. Thank you. Thank you all very much, and of course, remember, thank,
Commissioner,
yeah,
I'd like to bring up one thing, please.
certainly, yeah.
I think, first of all, I want a point of clarification that Commissioner Menser just said. Is it 5 million for 6 months, or is it 2.5 million for each 6 months?
5 million for 6 months,
5 million for 6,
on the general fund.
on the general
That's
fund.
the target.
That's the target, okay. And then I would still like to see us put a hiring freeze in place. And I'd like to know, off the general fund vacant positions, we were told we didn't know how many there really were vacant. Are we closer to an answer there on how many do we have that are
We'll see
vacant?
if we can have that on Friday.
On Friday.
Are we gonna do the freeze on Friday then, I'd
We'll
ask?
talk about the freeze on Friday, yes. Part of all the decisions we're making.
Okay,
So
Go ahead,
if I
Robin.
could just have one last comment, I want to thank all of the elected officials, the department directors, and all of the financial staff, as well as the program people across the county. This is not an easy task. It's heart-wrenching. It's disconcerting to do these kinds of cuts at this level, and everyone, I think, really stepped up. And I just wanted to express my appreciation for that, and my deep appreciation for the budget team and all the work that they've done. So thank you to everyone across the county, because
Yeah.
I know it's hard.
I would like to echo that and more so in terms of the timing. We sent a letter on your behalf last Thursday afternoon, and we asked them to provide their perspective by the end of the day yesterday. I know all the offices and departments, when they went through this process, they worked endless hours over the last handful of days. So I really appreciate that effort, because I know that each one of them worked through the weekend in long hours just to meet that request. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you all very, very much.
I appreciate that, and I'll make sure that I'm going to be reading each and every submission by Friday. So thank you so much.
Okay, we're leaving the meeting. We're adjourned. Bye-bye now.